"Dad, why don't you move to Arizona to be near family?" my son said after my wife's funeral. "I thought I'd find family warmth after 42 years of lonely marriage." But when I walked into my son's kitchen, I witnessed a scene that made my blood run cold. My 9-year-old granddaughter washing dishes with tears streaming down her face while her stepmother filmed a perfect family video. Upstairs. They thought I was just a lonely old man who didn't understand modern parenting methods. They were wrong. 30 years as a detective taught me how to spot criminals, and what I discovered next would shatter everything I thought I knew about my own son. Let me back up and tell you how I got here. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. 3 months ago, I buried my wife Vivian after 42 years of marriage. Cancer took her on a Tuesday morning in Chicago, and with her went every reason I had to stay in that cold, empty house. The silence was deafening. Every corner held memories of her laughter, her terrible cooking, her way of humming while she read the morning paper. My son Trevor called that same week. "Dad, why don't you come out to Scottsdale? The weather's great, and Iris would love to spend more time with her grandfather." It was the first time we'd talked in months, maybe longer. After Vivian's funeral, he'd flown back to Arizona with promises to stay in touch, but life has a way of getting in the way of good intentions. So here I was, 70 years old, loading my life into a moving truck and heading west. 30 years as a Chicago police detective had taught me to read people, to notice the details others missed. But nothing had prepared me for retirement, for the hollow feeling of having nowhere to be and no one counting on you. The flight to Phoenix felt endless. I kept thinking about Trevor as a boy, how he used to follow me around the house, asking a million questions about police work. "Dad, do you really catch bad guys?" he'd ask with wide eyes. I'd ruffle his hair and tell him that mostly I helped people who were in trouble. I wondered if he remembered those conversations. Trevor picked me up at the airport in a shiny pickup truck that probably cost more than my first house. He looked good, successful. His construction business was thriving, he told me during the drive through the desert landscape. The mountains rose like ancient guardians around us, and the sun beat down with an intensity that made Chicago's winters seem like a distant memory. "Bianca's excited to meet you," he said, glancing at me sideways. "She's got this whole dinner planned. And Iris has been asking about her grandfather for weeks." Bianca, his second wife. I'd seen her in photos, of course. Blonde, younger than Trevor by almost a decade, with the kind of smile that belonged on magazine covers. They'd been married for 3 years, but this would be our first meeting. Vivian always said I was too judgmental about Trevor's choices, but a cop learns to trust his gut. The house was impressive, all modern lines and desert landscaping. Through the large windows, I could see into what looked like a showroom kitchen, all granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. Everything was perfect, too, perfect. "Grandpa Don," a small voice called out as we entered through the front door. Iris came running toward me, and my heart nearly stopped. She looked exactly like Trevor had at that age, all serious brown eyes and messy dark hair. But something was off. Her smile seemed forced, and there were dark circles under her eyes that no 9-year-old should have. "Hello, sweetheart," I said, kneeling down to her level. She hugged me, but it was brief, like she was afraid of getting in trouble for taking too long. "Iris, honey, go help your mother in the kitchen," Trevor said automatically. The little girl's face fell slightly, but she nodded and disappeared toward the back of the house. That's when I heard it. The sound of running water dishes clinking, and underneath it all, the soft sound of someone crying. My detective instincts kicked in immediately. Something wasn't right here. "Where's Bianca?" I asked. "Upstairs finishing up some work," Trevor replied, but his eyes didn't meet mine. "She runs a lifestyle blog, does these video things for social media. Pretty successful at it, too." I followed the sound toward the kitchen, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Iris stood on a step stool at the sink, her small hands red and pruned from hot water, tears streaming down her cheeks as she scrubbed what looked like dishes for an entire dinner party. The counter was covered with pots, pans, and serving dishes. Above us, I could hear Bianca's voice, bright and cheerful, talking to a camera about family values and raising grateful children. I realized in that moment that my quiet retirement in Arizona was about to become anything but peaceful. The next morning, I woke up in Trevor's guest room to the sound of Iris's alarm clock at 6:30. Through the thin walls, I could hear her small feet padding across the hallway, then the sound of running water in the bathroom. By the time I'd gotten dressed and made my way to the kitchen, she was already there, standing on her step stool, cracking eggs into a bowl. "Good morning, sweetheart," I said softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned around with that same forced smile from yesterday. "Good morning, Grandpa Don. I'm making breakfast for everyone." Mommy likes her eggs over easy and Daddy wants scrambled with cheese. I watched this tiny girl work with the efficiency of someone 3 times her age. Her movements were practiced automatic. This wasn't a child helping out occasionally. This was a child who'd been doing this for a long time. What about what you like for breakfast? I asked. She paused, looking confused by the question. I eat whatever's left, she said simply, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. Before I could respond, I heard the click of high heels on the hardwood stairs. Bianca appeared in the kitchen doorway like she was walking onto a movie set. Everything about her was perfect. Hairstyled, makeup flawless, wearing what looked like an expensive workout outfit that had never seen actual exercise. "Oh, Don," she exclaimed, her voice bright and theatrical. "I'm so sorry I missed you yesterday. I was finishing up content for my followers. You know Howard Island." She gestured vaguely upward as if her online audience lived in the ceiling. "Of course," I replied, studying her face. In my years as a detective, I'd learned to spot performers. Bianca was definitely performing. "Iris, honey, make sure Grandpa Don gets the good coffee," she said, pulling out her phone and positioning it for what looked like a selfie. "I need to capture this perfect family morning for my stories." I watched in fascination and growing horror as Bianca transformed the kitchen into a stage. She moved Iris around like a prop, positioning her near the stove, with a spatula that was too big for her small hands. "Okay, everyone look natural," Bianca chirped, holding up her phone. "I'm going live with morning routines that build character. My followers love seeing how we raise independent, capable children." The irony was staggering. While Bianca posed and preened for her camera, talking about teaching responsibility and family values, Iris continued cooking breakfast for 4 people, her little face serious with concentration. "Good morning, beautiful souls," Bianca's voice suddenly became honey-sweet as she addressed her phone screen. "Welcome back to Living Your Best Life with Bianca. Today I want to share how we start our mornings in the Ashworth household, where even our youngest family member contributes to our daily success." She panned the camera toward Iris, who immediately straightened up and smiled on cue. It was clearly a practiced routine. As you can see, our precious Iris is learning valuable life skills by helping prepare our family breakfast. This isn't child labor lovelies. This is character building. In our home, everyone contributes according to their abilities. I felt my jaw clench. Character building. This little girl was doing the work of a full-grown adult while being filmed for entertainment. Trevor appeared just as Bianca was wrapping up her video. He grabbed his coffee and a piece of toast, kissed Bianca on the cheek, and headed toward the door. "Leaving already?" I asked. "Early job site meeting," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Bianca will take good care of you today, won't you, honey?" Of course, Bianca beamed. "I thought we could do some shopping, maybe lunch. Iris has her chores to finish first, but then we'll have the whole day." After Trevor left, I watched Bianca disappear back upstairs to her office, leaving Iris to clean up the breakfast dishes, wipe down counters, and start what looked like preparation for lunch. The contrast was striking. Upstairs, Bianca was probably editing videos about her perfect morning routine, while downstairs, a 9-year-old girl worked in silence. I pulled out my own phone, feeling ancient and clumsy with the technology. If Bianca was building her reputation on social media, maybe that's where I'd find the truth about what was really happening in this house. "Iris," I said gently after you finished those dishes, "would you like to sit with me for a while? Maybe we could read a book together." Her eyes lit up for the first time since I'd arrived. Really, I love reading, but I usually don't have time during the day. That's when I knew for certain that something was very, very wrong in this picture-perfect Arizona home. That afternoon, while Bianca was at what she called a content creator meetup, and Iris was taking a rare nap, I found myself staring at my phone like it was evidence from a crime scene, which in a way it was. I'd spent 30 years solving cases with shoe leather, witness interviews, and paper trails. Now I needed to crack a case that lived entirely in the digital world. The irony wasn't lost on me. A 70-year-old ex-cop trying to navigate Instagram and TikTok to save his granddaughter. My first stop was the local library. The young librarian, probably not much older than Trevor, looked amused when I asked for help with social media investigation. "Are you trying to catch a catfish, sir?" she asked with a kind smile. "Something like that," I replied. "I need to learn how to research someone's online presence." Thoroughly. For the next 2 hours, Sarah the librarian walked me through the basics. How to search hashtags, how to look at engagement patterns, how to find deleted content using Wayback Machines. My cop brain started making connections I hadn't expected. "The thing about social media," Sarah explained, "is that people think deleted content disappears forever. But the internet remembers everything. Back at Trevor's house that evening, I waited until everyone was asleep before starting my real investigation. I'd created accounts on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook using a fake name. Sarah had called it going undercover, and I appreciated that she understood the gravity of what I was doing. Bianca's main Instagram account, Living Your Best Life with Bianca, had over 50,000 followers. The posts were exactly what I'd witnessed that morning. Perfect family moments, inspirational quotes about raising independent children, and video after video of Iris cooking, cleaning, and serving. But it was the comments that made my blood boil. Goals. I wish my 9-year-old was that helpful. You're so lucky to have such a responsible daughter. Teaching them young. Love this family. What these people didn't see was the exhaustion in Iris's eyes, the way her small shoulders sagged when she thought no one was looking, or how she flinched whenever Bianca's voice got sharp. I dug deeper, going back months in her posts. The pattern was clear. Every single day, multiple posts featuring Iris working, cooking elaborate meals, organizing closets, doing laundry, cleaning bathrooms. The captions were always about life skills and character building, but the reality was child exploitation for social media profit. Then I found her TikTok account. This was worse. Short videos of Iris performing household tasks, while upbeat music played over them. One video titled 9-Year-Old Makes Thanksgiving Dinner Solo had over 2 million views. 2 million people had watched my granddaughter struggle to lift a 20-pound turkey while Bianca filmed instead of helping. I screenshot everything, my detective instincts kicking into high gear. Evidence, collection pattern, documentation, timeline establishment. This was a case, and I was going to build it properly. But the real breakthrough came when I started searching Bianca's name in combination with other terms. Bianca Ashworth controversy, Bianca Ashworth criticism, Bianca Ashworth child labor. What I found made my hands shake. There were entire forum threads dedicated to criticizing Bianca's content. Parents, child development experts, even other influencers calling out what they saw as exploitation. One post from a child psychologist had been shared thousands of times. What we're seeing here isn't parenting, it's performance. This child is being used as content, and the psychological damage could be severe. But Bianca had been smart about managing her image. She'd had critical comments deleted, blocked users who questioned her methods, and created echo chambers of supporters who praised her parenting style. I kept digging, and that's when I found the smoking gun. 6 months ago, someone had posted a video compilation called The Truth About Bianca Ashworth. It showed clips from her content but slowed down and analyzed. You could see Iris's hands shaking from exhaustion. You could catch moments when the little girl's smile faltered between takes. You could hear Bianca's voice sharp and impatient in the background, telling Iris to do it again and smile bigger. The video had been taken down within hours, but someone had saved it and reposted it on a smaller platform. In the comments, I found something that made my heart race. A user named FormerNanny2019 had written, "I worked for this family briefly last year. What you see online is nothing compared to what happens off camera. That little girl is being abused and someone needs to help her." I tried to contact FormerNanny2019, but the account had been deleted. However, her comment had been screenshot and shared in several child advocacy groups. People were talking about Bianca, questioning her methods, but no one had taken action. Until now. I closed my laptop and looked out at the Arizona night sky. The desert was peaceful, but my mind was racing. I had evidence now. Digital evidence, pattern evidence, expert testimony from strangers on the internet who could see what Trevor apparently couldn't. My granddaughter was being exploited for profit, and her own father was either blind to it or choosing to ignore it. But I wasn't going to ignore it. Not anymore. Tomorrow, I would start building a case that would protect Iris, even if it meant going to war with my own family. The next evening, I decided it was time for a family dinner conversation that was long overdue. I'd spent the day watching Iris prepare an elaborate meal, while Bianca filmed cooking with kids advanced techniques for her YouTube channel. Watching my granddaughter julienne vegetables with hands barely big enough to grip the knife properly had been the final straw. "This looks incredible, Iris," I said as she set down a perfectly plated salmon dish that would have impressed a restaurant critic. "You're quite the chef." She beamed with pride, but I noticed how she immediately looked to Bianca for approval. The little girl had been trained to seek validation for every action. "She's very talented," Bianca agreed, settling into her chair without offering to help serve the meal Iris had spent 3 hours preparing. "I believe in nurturing natural abilities. Most parents coddle their children, but I'm preparing Iris for real life. Trevor nodded along, cutting into his salmon. Bianca's approach is pretty progressive. Iris is learning skills most kids her age don't have. I set down my fork and looked directly at my son. Trevor, when you were 9, what did you do after school? He looked puzzled by the question. I don't know. Played with friends, watched cartoons, rode my bike. Why? And how many hours a day would you say you spent doing household chores? Maybe 30 minutes, an hour on weekends. His brow furrowed. Dad, where are you going with this? I pulled out my phone, which I'd loaded with screenshots from Bianca's social media accounts. I've been doing some research on modern parenting techniques. Very educational. Bianca's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition mixed with wariness. This is interesting, I continued scrolling through the images. Here's a video of Iris making Thanksgiving dinner. Solo. 2 million views. Here's one of her deep cleaning the bathroom. 1.5 million views. And here's my personal favorite, 9-year-old meal preps for entire week. 3 million views. The silence at the table was deafening. Iris had stopped eating, her eyes wide and confused. Trevor was staring at the phone screen like he was seeing these images for the first time. Dad, I can explain. Bianca started, but I held up my hand. I'm sure you can. But first, let me share some of the comments from child development experts. I began reading from my screenshots. Dr. Jennifer Martinez, licensed child psychologist. What we're witnessing is not education, it's exploitation. This child is being used as content for profit, and the psychological impact could be devastating. Those people don't understand our family dynamic, Bianca said, her voice getting defensive. Iris loves helping. She's proud of her contributions. Is that why you delete comments from concerned viewers? I asked. Is that why you blocked the account that shared the compilation video showing Iris's hands shaking from exhaustion? Trevor's head snapped up. What compilation video? I turned my phone toward him, showing him the screenshots I'd managed to capture before the video was taken down. This one. The one that shows what happens between takes. The one where you can hear Bianca telling Iris to do it again and stop crying when she burns herself on the stove. That's taken completely out of context, Bianca snapped, her perfect composure finally cracking. Content creation is hard work. Everyone in this family contributes to our success. Everyone. I looked around the table. Trevor, how many hours a day do you spend creating content for Bianca's channels? I don't really. I'm not. Trevor stumbled over his words. That's right, you don't. You go to work, you come home to meals prepared by your 9-year-old daughter, and you collect the benefits of a lifestyle funded by her labor. It's not labor, Bianca insisted. It's life skills, education. The income is just a bonus. I pulled up her business registration documents, which Sarah the librarian had helped me find in public record. According to the state of Arizona, Living Your Best Life with Bianca, LLC, generated over $200,000 in revenue last year. That's not bonus money, Bianca. That's a business built on the back of a child. Trevor was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. 200,000. You told me you made a few $100s a month from sponsorships. The money goes to family expenses, Bianca said quickly. Iris benefits from everything we buy. Does she? I asked. Because from what I've observed, Iris wears the same 3 outfits while you buy designer clothes for your videos. She sleeps on a twin mattress while you and Trevor have a king-size bed in the master suite. She eats leftovers while you go out to expensive restaurants for content creation dinners. Iris had been sitting quietly through this entire exchange, but now she spoke up in a small voice. Grandpa Don, am I in trouble? My heart broke. This little girl thought she was the problem. No, sweetheart, I said gently. You're not in trouble. You're never in trouble for being a kid who should be playing instead of working. But Mommy says if I don't help, we won't have money for the house, and Daddy will be sad, Iris said, tears starting to form in her eyes. The silence that followed was devastating. Trevor's face had gone pale, and even Bianca seemed to realize how her manipulation sounded when spoken by a 9-year-old. Iris, honey, Trevor said slowly. Daddy would never be sad if you wanted to play instead of cook. Do you understand that? She shook her head, confused. But Mommy says. What Mommy says and what's true are 2 different things, I interrupted. Trevor, you need to decide right now what kind of father you want to be. The kind who protects his daughter, or the kind who profits from her childhood. Trevor looked at his wife, then at his daughter, then at me. For the first time since I'd arrived, I saw a flicker of the man I'd raised. The boy who used to ask me about catching bad guys. Bianca, he said quietly, we need to talk. Privately. But Bianca was done pretending. Fine, she said, standing up abruptly. You want to know the truth. This family was going nowhere before I built our brand. Trevor was barely making ends meet with his construction work. Now we have this house financial security, a future. And yes, Iris contributes to that. She's good at it, and she's helping her family succeed. She's 9 years old, I said, standing up as well. She should be worried about homework and playground drama, not whether her performance in your videos will pay the mortgage. The world doesn't coddle children anymore, Don Bianca shot back. I'm preparing her for reality. No, I said firmly. You're stealing her childhood for your bank account. And it ends now. The argument that followed dinner lasted until nearly midnight. Voices were raised, accusations flew, and through it all, Iris sat curled up in the living room, pretending to read while listening to her family tear itself apart. I should have sent her to her room, but something told me she needed to hear this. She needed to understand that what was happening to her wasn't normal, wasn't okay. Trevor, to his credit, was finally asking the right questions. How long had this been going on? Why hadn't Bianca told him about the real income? What other lies had she been telling? But Bianca had an answer for everything, a justification wrapped in concern for family financial security and Iris's future opportunities. The breaking point came the next morning. I woke up early, as was my habit, and found Iris already in the kitchen. But this time was different. She was standing at the stove, trying to flip pancakes that were too heavy for the spatula she was using. Her movements were clumsy, exhausted. She'd been up late, listening to the fighting, and it showed. "Morning, sweetheart," I said gently. "Maybe I could help with those. I can do it," she said, but her voice was shaky. "Mommy wants me to make extra today because she's filming a Sunday brunch goals video for her Instagram stories." As if summoned by the mention of her name, Bianca appeared in the doorway, already dressed and made up for filming, her phone in hand. "Perfect timing," she chirped, as if the previous night's confrontation had never happened. "Iris, honey, remember what we practiced." Big smile, confident movements. "This is going to get so many views." I watched in horror as she started filming while Iris struggled with the heavy pan. The little girl was trying to smile for the camera, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the way her small arms shook from the weight. "Bianca," I said firmly, "she's tired. Let me help her." "Don't interfere," she snapped, not lowering her phone. "This is important content. My followers are expecting." That's when it happened. Iris tried to flip a pancake that was too big for her spatula. The pan tilted, and hot oil splashed across her forearm. Her scream cut through the morning air like a knife. The phone clattered to the floor as Bianca rushed forward, but I was already there, pulling Iris away from the stove and running cold water over her burned arm. "It's okay, baby, it's okay," I murmured, but she was sobbing not just from pain, but from fear. I'm sorry," she kept saying through her tears. "I ruined the video. Mommy's going to be so mad." That's when something inside me snapped. "No," I said, my voice carrying the authority of 30 years of police work. "You are not sorry. You are a 9-year-old child who got hurt because you were doing work that no child should be doing." I turned to face Bianca, who was frantically trying to clean up the spilled oil and retrieve her phone. "This ends now." "It was an accident," she said defensively. "These things happen when you're learning." "Learning?" I interrupted. "She's not learning, Bianca. She's performing. For your profit. And now she's injured because you prioritized your content over her safety." Trevor appeared in the doorway, drawn by Iris's cries. When he saw his daughter's bandaged arm and tear-streaked face, something fundamental shifted in his expression. "What happened?" he asked quietly. "Mommy was filming, and I dropped the pan and the oil splashed, and I ruined everything," Iris sobbed. Trevor knelt down beside his daughter, his face pale. "Iris, look at me. You didn't ruin anything. You got hurt, and that's not your fault." "But the video—" "Forget the video," Trevor said firmly, and I felt a surge of pride. Finally, he was being a father. "Videos don't matter. You matter." Bianca was not giving up without a fight. "Trevor, you're overreacting. It's a minor burn. She'll be fine. We can still salvage the content if we what." Trevor stood up, and for the first time since I'd arrived, he looked like the strong man I'd raised. "Film our daughter's injury for sympathy views. Turn her pain into content." "You're being dramatic," Bianca said, but her voice had lost some of its confidence. "This is our livelihood. Our family depends on this income." "Our family," I said, still holding Iris close, "depends on this little girl being safe and happy, not on how many followers you have or how much money you can make from her childhood." Trevor was staring at his wife like he was seeing her for the first time. "Bianca, I want you to delete the accounts." "What?" She looked genuinely shocked. "All of them. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Delete them all. You can't be serious. Do you have any idea what I've built? What we'd be giving up? What we'd be giving up?" Trevor said, his voice growing stronger with each word, is the exploitation of our daughter. What we'd be gaining is her childhood back. Bianca's mask finally slipped completely. Fine, she hissed, but don't come crying to me when the bills pile up and we lose this house. Don't blame me when you realize that your construction work alone can't maintain this lifestyle. Then we'll downsize, Trevor said simply. We'll live in a smaller house, drive older cars, eat simpler meals. But our daughter will be a kid, not a content creator. I felt Iris relax against me for the first time since I'd arrived. The fear in her eyes was being replaced by something I hadn't seen before: hope. Iris, I said gently, how would you like to spend the day reading books and maybe playing in the backyard? No cooking, no cleaning, no cameras. She looked up at me with wonder as if I'd just offered her the moon. Really, I can just play, really, Trevor said, kneeling down beside us. From now on, you can just be a kid. The war for Iris's childhood wasn't over yet. But for the first time since I'd arrived in Arizona, I believed we might actually win it. Bianca didn't delete the accounts. Instead, she doubled down. 3 days after the kitchen incident, I woke up to my phone buzzing with notifications. Someone had tagged me in dozens of social media posts. With growing dread, I opened the first one. It was a video of Bianca sitting in what looked like a professional studio, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. The caption read, "Heartbroken family torn apart by false accusations." "My beautiful followers," she began, her voice trembling with practiced emotion, "I'm sharing this with a heavy heart. My family is being destroyed by lies and manipulation. My father-in-law has convinced my husband that I'm somehow harming our daughter by teaching her life skills and responsibility. I watched in stunned silence as she painted herself as the victim. According to her version of events, I was a bitter old man who couldn't accept that parenting had evolved. She showed clips of Iris cooking and cleaning, but edited them to look like fun family activities rather than the exhausting labor I'd witnessed. The truth is, Bianca continued, some people can't handle seeing a strong, independent woman building a successful business while raising a confident, capable daughter. They want to tear down what we've built together. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. Thousands of followers expressing outrage at the toxic grandfather who was trying to destroy this beautiful family. Some even suggested that Trevor was being manipulated and that Bianca should fight for custody of Iris. My phone rang. Trevor's name appeared on the screen. "Dad, have you seen this?" His voice was tight with stress. "I'm looking at it now," I said, scrolling through more posts. Bianca had been busy. She'd created an entire narrative across multiple platforms, positioning herself as a devoted mother being persecuted by her controlling in-laws. "She's hired a lawyer," Trevor said. "She's claiming that you've created a hostile environment for Iris and that I'm being manipulated into making decisions that aren't in our daughter's best interest." I felt my old police instincts kick in. "What kind of lawyer? Family law?" "She's filing for emergency custody, claiming that Iris is being psychologically damaged by the conflict in our home." The irony was staggering. The woman who had been exploiting Iris for profit was now claiming to protect her from psychological damage. "Trevor, we need our own legal representation. And we need it today." That afternoon, we sat in the office of Margaret Chen, a family law attorney who specialized in child welfare cases. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and the kind of quiet intensity that reminded me of the best prosecutors I'd worked with. "I've reviewed the social media evidence you've provided," she said, spreading screenshots across her desk. "This is actually more common than you might think. Family influencers who monetize their children often struggle to see the line between content creation and exploitation." "What are our chances?" Trevor asked. "Good, but not guaranteed," Margaret replied honestly. "The challenge is that Bianca has created a public narrative that paints her as the victim. She has thousands of supporters who will testify to her character as a mother. We need to focus on the facts: the hours Iris was working, the financial exploitation, the lack of proper education and socialization." "What about the injury?" I asked. "That helps, but Bianca's already spinning it as an accident that could happen to any child learning to cook." "We need more." That's when I remembered something from my police days. What if we could prove that Bianca has been systematically silencing critics and hiding evidence of harm? Margaret leaned forward. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots I'd taken of deleted comments and removed videos. "She's been curating her online presence to hide any evidence that people were concerned about Iris's welfare. There were child development experts, former employees, other parents, all raising red flags. But she deleted their comments and blocked their accounts. That's gold, Margaret said, making notes. It shows consciousness of guilt. She knew what she was doing was questionable, or she wouldn't have worked so hard to silence criticism. Over the next 2 weeks, we built our case methodically. Margaret's team reached out to the deleted commenters, many of whom were willing to testify. We found the former nanny who had tried to speak out online. Her real name was Jennifer Martinez, and she had worked for the family for 3 months before quitting in disgust. I couldn't watch it anymore, Jennifer told us during a video deposition. Iris was exhausted all the time. She'd fall asleep standing up while doing dishes. When I tried to suggest that maybe she could play instead of work, Bianca told me that I didn't understand modern parenting and that Iris needed to earn her keep. Meanwhile, Bianca's social media campaign intensified. She posted daily updates about the legal battle for her daughter, always positioning herself as the loving mother, fighting against toxic family members who wanted to destroy their happiness. Her followers responded with donations to her legal fund, hate mail, sent to Trevor's construction business, and even threats against me. The irony wasn't lost on me that a woman who claimed to be protecting her daughter was encouraging strangers to harass her daughter's grandfather. The preliminary hearing was set for a Tuesday morning in early November. As we sat in the courthouse waiting room, I watched Trevor nervously adjusting his tie. He'd aged years in the past month. "You okay, son?" I asked. He managed a weak smile. "Just thinking about how we got here. 6 months ago, I thought I had the perfect family. Perfect wife, perfect life, perfect daughter who could do anything." "You do have a perfect daughter," I said. "But perfection in a 9-year-old should mean scraped knees and messy hair and homework struggles. Not professional-level cooking skills and social media fame." "I know that now," he said quietly. "I just hope it's not too late." Margaret appeared in the doorway, her expression serious but confident. "They're ready for us," she said. "Remember, stick to the facts. Don't let emotion drive your testimony. We have the evidence. We just need to present it clearly." As we walked into the courtroom, I saw Bianca for the first time since the kitchen confrontation. She looked every inch the grieving mother, dressed conservatively with minimal makeup, her hair pulled back in a simple style. Even her lawyer looked sympathetic to her cause. But I'd spent 30 years watching people perform in courtrooms. I knew the difference between genuine emotion and calculated manipulation. The judge, the Honorable Patricia Williams, was a woman in her 60s with the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd seen every kind of family dysfunction imaginable. "This case," she began, "involves some very serious allegations about child welfare and parental fitness. I want to make it clear that my only concern is what's best for Iris Ashworth. Everything else is secondary." As the proceedings began, I felt the familiar weight of seeking justice. But this time, it wasn't for a stranger. It was for my granddaughter. And I was determined to win. The hearing lasted 3 days, but it felt like 3 years. Bianca's lawyer presented her case, first painting a picture of a devoted mother who had built a successful business while teaching her daughter valuable life skills. They showed carefully edited clips from her social media accounts, highlighting moments where Iris appeared happy and proud of her accomplishments. "Your Honor," Bianca's attorney argued, "we're dealing with a generational conflict here. Mr. Ashworth's father represents an old-school approach to parenting that simply doesn't understand modern family dynamics. Mrs. Ashworth has created opportunities for her daughter that most children could only dream of." When Bianca took the stand, she was masterful. Tears at exactly the right moments, a voice that trembled with maternal concern, anecdotes about Iris's supposed love of cooking and cleaning. To someone who hadn't seen what I'd seen, she would have appeared to be the perfect mother being persecuted by an interfering grandfather. But then it was our turn. Margaret started with the financial records. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence the business filings for Living Your Best Life with Bianca, LLC, which show gross revenue of $237,000 last year, generated primarily through content featuring the minor child Iris Ashworth." The number hung in the air like a thunderclap. Even Bianca's supporters in the gallery seemed taken aback by the scale of the operation. "Mrs. Ashworth," Margaret continued during cross-examination, "you testified that Iris enjoys participating in your content creation. Can you tell the court how many hours per day Iris spends on activities related to your social media business?" Bianca squirmed slightly. "It varies. Maybe 2 or 3 hours." Margaret pulled out a tablet loaded with time-stamped videos. "According to your own posted content on November 3rd, Iris appeared in videos showing her making breakfast at 6 a.m., organizing closets at 10 a.m., preparing lunch at noon, cleaning bathrooms at 3 p.m., and cooking dinner at 6 p.m. That's approximately 8 hours of documented labor, not including the time spent on retakes and setup that doesn't appear in the final videos. Those were spread throughout the day, Bianca protested. Yes, they were. Which means that on November 3rd, your 9-year-old daughter had no time for play, homework, or rest between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. Is that correct? The courtroom was silent except for the sound of Bianca's lawyer frantically scribbling notes. When Jennifer Martinez testified via video link, the atmosphere in the room shifted completely. Her account of Iris falling asleep, while standing of being told that a 9-year-old needed to earn her keep of being fired for suggesting that Iris should have time to play, was devastating. But the moment that sealed Bianca's fate came when Margaret presented the evidence of systematic censorship. Your Honor, I'd like to show the court a pattern of behavior that demonstrates Mrs. Ashworth's awareness that her treatment of Iris was inappropriate. Margaret displayed screenshots of deleted comments from child development experts, blocked accounts of concerned viewers, and removed videos that showed Iris in distress. Dr. Patricia Rodriguez, a licensed child psychologist, posted this comment on one of Mrs. Ashworth's videos. This child shows clear signs of exhaustion and stress. What we're seeing is not education but exploitation. Mrs. Ashworth deleted this comment within minutes and blocked Dr. Rodriguez's account. She showed dozens of similar examples. Parents expressing concern, educators raising red flags, even other family influencers suggesting that Iris was being overworked. All deleted, all silenced, all hidden from public view. If Mrs. Ashworth truly believed her parenting methods were appropriate, Margaret argued, why did she work so hard to silence professional criticism? The evidence shows a pattern of consciousness, of guilt. When Trevor took the stand, he was a different man than the one I'd found when I arrived in Arizona. Gone was the passive husband who let his wife make all the decisions. In his place was a father who had finally found his voice. I failed my daughter, he said simply. I was so impressed by Bianca's success, so grateful that our financial problems were solved that I didn't see what it was costing Iris. I convinced myself that she was just mature for her age, that she enjoyed the responsibility, but children shouldn't have to earn their place in their own family. His voice broke slightly. When I saw her get burned making breakfast for a video, when I heard her apologize for ruining the content, instead of crying about her pain, I realized that we hadn't raised a responsible child. We'd trained a performer who was afraid to disappoint us. Finally, it was my turn to testify. I kept it simple, sticking to what I'd observed and the evidence I'd gathered. But Judge Williams asked me a question I hadn't expected. Mr. Ashworth, you've been estranged from your son's family for some time. What motivated you to become involved in this situation? I looked across the courtroom at Iris, who was sitting with a court-appointed advocate, coloring quietly in a book. She looked like what she was supposed to be, a 9-year-old child. Your Honor, I spent 30 years as a police officer. I've seen a lot of ways that adults can harm children, usually for money, power, or control. When I saw my granddaughter being exploited for profit, I couldn't walk away, not even if it meant destroying my relationship with my son. I paused, gathering my thoughts. Iris is 9 years old. She should be worried about math, homework, and making friends, not whether her cooking performance will pay the mortgage. She deserves to have a childhood, and someone needed to fight for that. Judge Williams deliberated for 2 hours. When she returned, her expression was grave. This case represents a troubling intersection of modern technology, social media culture, and child welfare, she began. While I understand that family influencers have become a legitimate form of business, the court's primary concern must always be the best interests of the child. She looked directly at Bianca. Mrs. Ashworth, the evidence presented shows a pattern of exploitation that goes far beyond teaching life skills. The financial records demonstrate that Iris has been the primary income generator for your household working hours that would be illegal for an adult employee, much less a child. My heart was pounding as she continued. Furthermore, your systematic deletion of expert criticism shows that you were aware of concerns about your daughter's welfare and chose to silence them rather than address them. This court finds that your current custody arrangement is not in Iris's best interests. The gavel came down with finality. Custody of Iris Ashworth is awarded to her father, Trevor Ashworth, with supervised visitation only for Mrs. Ashworth, until she completes a parenting course and psychological evaluation. All social media accounts featuring the minor child are to be permanently deleted, and Mrs. Ashworth is prohibited from creating any new content featuring Iris without prior court approval. Bianca's supporters in the gallery gasped, but I felt only relief. Justice had been served. As we left the courthouse, Trevor put his arm around my shoulders. Thank you, Dad, for seeing what I couldn't see, for fighting when I was too weak to fight. That's what grandfathers are for, I said, watching Iris skip ahead of us toward the car, finally free to act like the child she'd always been. The legal battle was over. Now the real work of healing could begin. 6 months later, I stood in Trevor's backyard watching Iris chase butterflies through the desert wildflowers that had bloomed after the spring rains. She was laughing, her hair messy from running, her clothes dirty from playing in the garden. She looked exactly like what she was supposed to be, a 10-year-old kid without a care in the world. The transformation had been remarkable. Within weeks of the court ruling, the dark circles under her eyes had disappeared. She'd started sleeping through the night without nightmares. Most importantly, she'd rediscovered what it meant to play. "Grandpa Don," she called out, running toward me with a butterfly net Trevor had bought her. "Look what I caught." She showed me the net, which was empty except for a few flower petals. "It got away," she said with a grin that would have broken my heart 6 months ago. Back then, she would have apologized profusely for failing at a task. Now she just shrugged and ran off to try again. Trevor emerged from the house carrying 2 glasses of iced tea. He looked younger somehow, despite the stress of the past months. The weight of living a lie had been lifted from his shoulders. "Hard to believe it's the same kid," he said, settling into the chair beside me. "It's the same kid I corrected. She was just buried under all that responsibility and performance anxiety. This is who she always was underneath." We watched in comfortable silence as Iris discovered a lizard sunning itself on a rock. Instead of being afraid, she crouched down to observe it, whispering questions to herself about where it lived and what it ate. Curiosity instead of fear. Wonder instead of worry. "I got a call from Margaret yesterday," Trevor said. "Bianca's completed her parenting classes and psychological evaluation." I felt my muscles tense slightly. "And the psychologist recommended continued supervised visits only." Apparently, Bianca still doesn't fully understand why what she did was wrong. She keeps talking about missed opportunities and how Iris could have been set for life if we'd just continued building the brand. I shook my head. Even now, even after losing everything, Bianca saw Iris as a missed business opportunity rather than a child who deserved protection. What about the social media accounts, all deleted as ordered? Though Margaret says Bianca's been trying to rebuild her following on new platforms, talking about her journey through false accusations and her plans for a comeback. Trevor's voice carried a note of disgust. "Some people never learn. The important thing is that Iris is protected," I said. "How's she doing with the visits?" Trevor's expression grew thoughtful. "Better than I expected, actually. The court-appointed supervisor says Iris is polite but distant with Bianca. She doesn't seem afraid, just uninterested, like she's moved on." That evening, after Iris had gone to bed, Trevor and I sat on the back patio watching the desert sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. The silence between us was comfortable now, filled with understanding rather than years of resentment. "Dad," Trevor said finally, "I owe you an apology that's about 15 years overdue." I started to protest, but he held up his hand. "Let me say this. When Mom died, I was angry at the world, but mostly I was angry at you for moving on with Vivian. I thought it meant you'd forgotten Mom, that you'd replaced her like she didn't matter." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "But watching you fight for Iris, seeing how you put her welfare above your own comfort, above your relationship with me, I finally understand what love actually looks like. It's not about holding on to the past or protecting yourself from pain. It's about doing whatever it takes to protect the people who matter, even when it's hard." I felt my eyes well up with tears I'd been holding back for months. "Your mother would be proud of the man you've become, Trevor. And she'd be especially proud of how you stood up for Iris when it mattered most." "I almost didn't," he admitted. "I was so comfortable letting Bianca handle everything, so grateful for the financial security that I nearly lost my daughter in the process." "But you didn't lose her," I said firmly. "When you saw what was really happening, you chose her over everything else. That's what matters." As if summoned by our conversation, Iris appeared in the doorway wearing her pajamas, her hair still damp from her bath. "I can't sleep," she said, rubbing her eyes. "Come here, sweetheart," I said, patting my lap. She climbed up and settled against me, warm and trusting in a way that still amazed me. "Grandpa Don," she said quietly, "thank you for saving me." My throat tightened. "You didn't need saving, honey. You just needed someone to see that you deserved to be a kid." "I like being a kid," she said with a yawn. "It's more fun than being famous." Trevor and I exchanged a look over her head. out of the mouths of babes. "Tell me about when Daddy was little," she said, settling more comfortably against me. So I did. I told her about Trevor learning to ride a bike, about his fascination with building blocks, about the time he tried to catch fireflies in a mason jar. Normal childhood stories about a normal little boy who grew up to be a good man. As Iris drifted off to sleep in my arms, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. A year ago, I'd been a lonely widower with no purpose, estranged from my only child. Now I was surrounded by family, playing an active role in my granddaughter's life, with a relationship with my son that was stronger than it had ever been. The desert night was cool and peaceful, filled with the sound of crickets and the distant call of coyotes. Iris slept peacefully in my arms, dreaming whatever dreams 10-year-olds dream when they're safe and loved and free to just be children. "Dad," Trevor said softly. "Yeah, I'm glad you came to Arizona." I smiled, looking up at the vast desert sky, filled with more stars than you could ever see in Chicago. "Me too, son. Me too. Sometimes the best chapters of our lives begin when we think the story is over. Sometimes family isn't about blood or obligation, but about choosing to fight for each other when it matters most. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we get the chance to rewrite the ending." In the distance, a desert owl called out to its mate, and I knew that we were exactly where we were supposed to be. Looking back on that transformative year in Arizona, I've learned that family isn't just about shared blood or shared history. It's about shared courage when someone you love is in danger. Sometimes the greatest act of love is disrupting the peace to protect the innocent. We live in an age where the line between sharing our lives and exploiting them has become dangerously blurred. Social media has given us incredible tools for connection, but it has also created new ways to harm the most vulnerable among us. Children deserve childhoods filled with scraped knees and silly games, not performance metrics and profit margins. The truth is, we all have a responsibility to speak up when we see something wrong, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it threatens relationships we value. Silence in the face of harm isn't peace, it's complicity. And sometimes the people we love most need us to be brave enough to fight for them even when they can't fight for themselves. Every time I watch Iris laugh freely, chase butterflies, or simply daydream without worrying about the next task on her list, I'm reminded that childhood is not a dress rehearsal for adulthood. It's a sacred time that once lost can never be fully recovered. The greatest gift we can give our children isn't fame or fortune. It's the freedom to discover who they are when no one is watching, when no cameras are rolling, when their worth isn't measured by their productivity. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.